Hi, this is A New Nigeria with Wale Oluwade. This is your current affairs program where we critically examine the strategic issues bedeviling Nigeria's developmental aspirations and boldly offer practical suggestions on building the Nigeria of our collective desires. Today's episode promises to be engaging and exciting. My guest is already here to assist me in doing justice and also give depth and clarity to the topic of our discourse. As always, it's going to be evidence-driven, honest, bold, and a no-holds-barred conversation. So get ready as we begin in earnest. And now, let's get on with it. Today, we're looking at how we make leaders. In my years of research on leading nations and their political leadership, I discovered that there is a direct correlation between certain countries or societies, often termed advanced or developed, who have instituted a fastidious and enduring culture of rigorous and consistent devotion to leadership development in the sphere of politics and government, from cradle unto maturity. In comparison, there are nations euphemistically referred to as developing, where there is an obvious absence of such commitments to leadership development in politics and government. In the former nations, various socio-cultural institutions are carefully designed to nurture leadership development, and this includes educational, professional, political, civil society organizations, think tank, and so on. Now, how has a lack of this affected our governance failures in Africa and Nigeria? In fact, do we understand that there is a direct correlation between leadership and development? Do we also understand that leadership is a strategic capability that is teachable and must be learned and nurtured from cradle to maturity? Now, we'll take this short break and start our conversation. Please stay with us. Welcome back. My guest is already here. Mr. Yunusa Tanko is the spokesperson for the Third Force movement under the Labour Party coalition. Good afternoon, Mr. Tanko.
Good afternoon for having me, Wale.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Nice having you on the program.
Thank you.
So let's get right into our conversation. What do you understand by leadership in the political terrain?
Well, a lot of scholars have defined leadership in different ways. But the single definition that one could have easily given is that somebody who is at the helm of affairs, who direct and take decisions on behalf of others. Okay. That is a simple definition of leadership. But for me, I try to define it in a different way.
Please go ahead.
And I said that leadership is the ability of an individual to listen to different groups, individual groups or collective groups, and take all of their interests, collapse it into one according to his own interest, and then making a complete comparison and having a achievable view for everybody. That way, you will have had the opportunity of listening to the different style and different views of different others who are probably in a different group or individual in the case. So that way, also, you do not remove your own particular, because you as an individual have what you want to say. So collapsing it into one and then dishing it out make you a much better leader.
So that this conversation is does not just sound theoretical. I'll be using examples from contemporary times, even in Nigeria and other parts of the world. I mean, let me ask you, Yunusa, the first republic politicians we had, Tafawa Balewa, Sir Ahmadu Bello, Obafemi Awolowo, Nnamdi Azikiwe. If you compare them with all that we have seen since 1999, this fourth republic, what do you think? Compare their styles and their attitude, their character. Do a comparison for us.
There are no in comparison, but all of them have an individualistic ideology that propel them. One thing that you can't talk about all of these leaders is that they are engineered with an ideology. And as at that time, of course, the Nigerian state was trying to get its rudiments, so there was a lot to do. Is it in terms of education or in terms of economic development, or in terms of probably getting a kind of a catchment name for the country? I give an example. Obafemi Awolowo's style of leadership was more oriented into rudiment of building the future using education as its grasp. When you talk about Ahmadu Bello and all, he was trying to infuse his own people using the economic way of life to make them survive economically, at the same time trying to get them into the space of current modern situation as at that time. And he was taking everybody along. While Nnamdi Ezekwe, of course, already they have gone even far in terms of education, was trying to more or less internationalize the idea of his own people. And so they are, each one of them were driven by ideology. So, and then it propelled them in a different way with current leadership.
Brilliant, brilliant. The reason why I asked the question is because it leads me to this one. In your own opinion, do you think leadership happens by accident, or it is a skill? It is something that can be taught. Someone can acquire it as a skill, like the same way you go and learn medicine or engineering or tailoring or carpentry. What do you think?
There are three ways in which you can gain leadership.
Okay.
Your leaders are naturally born.
You think so?
Yes, they are naturally born. And leadership at the same time also, you can acquire leadership by learning. And then thirdly, they take leadership. During the war, in those particular things, capable men who have war instincts go into war. And when they take up war, they become kings and queens. That's how you have some of them, that you have the Queen Amina and the rest of them. Through that particular. And in training, when you go to school, you learn from ABC, you learn. And then before you know it, your kind of brilliancy and acumen resonates from the learning process. You now become a brilliant person. And so naturally, when you become that, you now become a leader by that particular default. People really identify you as somebody who is brilliant. That even when they want to do assignment in classes, they will make it refer to, let's go to Wale. He knows most about politics, so they refer to you. So naturally, you become a leader. Then there are some that are gifted naturally. When they give birth to them, you will see them always assuming the position of leadership. It's either they are always surrounded by people, because people want to listen to them. They are either being directed, they direct people, and people listen to them. So naturally inborn, they are there. So these particular three different ways of having a leader resonate with the system in which I, as a researcher, too, have come across.
I like the point of your allusion to historical, narrative of leadership development. People going to war. I mean, if you win, even in Africa,
yes, of
Nigeria,
course.
I mean, coup plotting was a way people shoot themselves
yes,
into political leadership.
Yes, that's how it is.
We have a lot of them.
Yes.
Like that. But let me ask you, using the class that you mentioned when you were talking, I mean, there are pupils, who have this natural flair. Not because they are the best academically, but because maybe they have a way of, organizing their fellow pupils, in class before the teacher comes and all of that. So when it's time for the principal or the teachers to select a leader, because they look at certain attributes, it comes late, it comes early to class, it's disciplined, it's not rascally like the way some of us were when we were in primary and secondary school. I'm sure you were like that too, So now, if you look at our educational institution, because I'm going somewhere.
Yeah.
That produced all our leaders.
Yes.
Anybody who has been governor, president, minister in this country, Nigeria, anybody above 40, I'm sure, attended public schools. What do you think of the fate of our public schools from primary, secondary, and tertiary? Do we have those schools again that can produce good leaders for Nigeria?
Quite honestly, our recruitment process in Nigeria is actually faulty. Seriously.
Leadership recruitment.
Yes, and it's sad. And it's sad because those who were able to enjoy this particular opportunity, I was with one of my senior leaders. He was giving me a story of how they were when they were in school, that they had the best opportunities. Even their hostels were being made by wardens. They take care of them. When they go on a Sunday, they give them chickens and they enjoy. They were pampered as students. And the moment they come out of the university, they were already enrolled into a workspace. Exactly. You understand? But that is not happening now. Unfortunately, I think where we miss the call is that those who enjoyed that particular situation at about that particular time did not do the same thing for the younger generation that they inherited. And that, of course, led to a very bad scenario. I give you an example. In my school days, I like cooking, so I cook. I cook for my friends and all of those. So everybody comes to my room. Naturally, they come to my room and I dish everybody's food out. Somebody who was on the classmate who did not even actually, he come from a rich home. But for the simple fact that somebody ate his own food that I kept for him, he was raving. How can you deny me my food, leader? How can you deny me my food? Just like somebody going to his father's house and then his food is not there. He was raving because what we are doing now already, the position of leadership has been bestowed upon me. Not because probably I'm the best of all, but because I provided leadership and guidance. And that was in those days in our own school. It got gone worse now. Because most of the things you find in school, everybody is just finding for him or herself. So there's no connectivity within the system anymore. The teaching apparatus are bad, and that is why ASU is actually on a serious strike. Unfortunately, the government is not listening.
For 7 months now.
It's not listening.
We need to steer this back to political leadership because that's what we're focusing on.
Yes.
If you look at other facets of our national life, there still seems to be some serious level of leadership development because leadership cuts across, different disciplines or spheres of human endeavor.
Sure.
In the business sector, in the private sector, they still have some serious level of leadership development. Take the banking sector, for instance.
Yeah.
Wherever you studied, have your first degree, if you get into a bank as a management trainee, they employ you as a management trainee. And the reason why they put trainee to that management is that the expectation is that you're coming in and you are going to be trained on the job.
That's right.
And the idea is that you're going to be trained to climb the ladder of leadership.
Sure.
So part of the training, apart from having academic qualification, involves professional courses. You'll be going on trainings here and there. You'll be learning on the job, understanding your bosses, and then you'll be climbing. As they are retiring, you are climbing. Now, let's bring it to political evolution, the system of political leadership. Now, we already agreed that our educational system is broken. I don't want to say destroyed, but it's broken. I mean, I actually think, because the fight of ASU is to ensure the last frontier, which is the tertiary, is not completely destroyed. But primary, secondary, I know your own kids don't attend public primary or secondary. I know they don't. Mine don't. So, if academically, educationally, we have broken that path of leadership development, now the second part of leadership development politically is the political institution, political parties. Madam Yunusa, are you encouraged by what is going on in our political parties, whether it is the 18 or it is the 2 big dominant ones or the 4 are you encouraged by what is going on there? Can anybody, any youth aspiring to be a politician, get into any of these parties and be mentored? Because that's part of the 3 processes. Can any youth be mentored in the right political values?
I'll be honest with you.
Please.
I'm not encouraged, neither am I happy with it. Okay, but then here is the catch.
But explain why you're not happy. Why?
Yes, why I'm not happy is that some of the things that were not supposed to be said, people are involved in trivial issues. Political leaders have engaged into all kind of manipulative tendencies.
Is that just it? Because that's why when we started, I actually referred to the First Republic, comparing it to this
That
current
is the
republic.
difference.
The point is, can you even compare those parties
You
then?
cannot.
Please tell us what are the differences.
This is where I'm going, because at that point in time, they were ideologically driven. These ones they are independently driven by our own selfish and greed on their own.
In fact, if you say that, our listeners may not understand you. The common appropriate phrase, I think, is that the parties we have now, correct me if I'm wrong, they are SPVs, that is, they are special purpose vehicles, just set up to grab power.
Not really
no ideology,
not entirely the party, not the party itself, but the individual that take over leadership.
But who makes the party?
Exactly, but
no,
the party,
who makes the party?
Let me explain.
Yes.
Each of the political parties
have manifestos, constitutions, and all of
well
that.
drafted.
Yes.
So you cannot say that the party, because already it has a guiding principle.
But I pose the question to you: who makes the party?
The people.
The parties are
listen. When somebody comes into the party, because there is no guiding principle, he comes with his money and you solve the party completely. And so he take over the leadership of party, bringing his own personal interest into it. Because the key for him is that winning election at all costs. So it's different.
But what if I tell you I have had party chairmen, at least 2 of them, sit down here and say to me, when I ask this question, and they said to me that the essence of political parties is to win election. Is that correct?
No, it's not. Because for us as political gladiators who have been taught by Ganifa School of Thought and all of those.
We'll take this short break. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Now, Madam Yunusa, before we went on that short break, you know, we're talking very interesting conversation about the leadership development process from school and politics and all of that. Now, let me cast your mind back to a few other countries. In South Africa, for instance, you cannot emerge as president of South Africa. Wherever you studied in the world, you have to come and join ANC and 1 or 2 other parties. Now, since apartheid was eradicated and ANC became the governing party, every leader since then were a product of the ANC. And the party is so strong, they removed Thabo Mbeki, they removed even Zuma. Are you following me?
I'm with you.
So the party is strong. So now, if we have weak political parties in Nigeria, how do you grow political leaders?
Organically, the challenges that we have as political party leaders is with regard to funding. Funding become an issue.
Brilliant point. So let me ask you directly or pointedly. Another party chairman said because INEC stopped funding politics. What do you think? Should INEC or government fund political parties?
There are 2 issues.
Yes.
It's either government stop people using government resources to fund themselves and everybody go to the same market.
Let me ask you, maybe let me vary the question. What is the best practice in funding political parties globally?
Globally, there are people government who give seed money for the administration of political parties, even in the United States. Even when you're
I beg to differ with you. I agree. What I know from my years of study and research is that individuals, party members, the ideal way, because that is the way you ensure parties are not hijacked by money bags or individuals. And then we have this rascality that we have now, this total collapse of party discipline, party erosion of ideology and ethos and tenets. It is because a few money bags hijack the parties, or a political party wins elections, wins power, and then uses state resources. In my view, that's actually a crime.
Exactly.
But let's not dwell on that. Let's go back to the point. We've analyzed all of this. What is the solution, briefly?
Well, the solution...
How do we grow? How do we ensure our political parties, are able to return to the former ways of training political leaders?
Ideologically, it has to do with the way in which the system of education is. In our school days, we go into the rudiment of contesting in the SUG.
Participating in
debates and you
contesting
listen.
For student union governorship and all of that.
Exactly. So that's shaping you. And so when you come out, you are used to that particular rudiment. You don't even, but when the contemporary politicians, and then they usually invite politicians to come into the university to give in some of these particular pep talks. So you now emulate those particular leaders. And that was how we were trained. And that's why it's so difficult for us to really engage into money politics as well. So that has to be done. But in the situation where that is not possible, what we did when I was an IPAC chairman is this. We now have a Center for Political Party Training Center in NIPS. Many people don't know this. To train politicians and political parties on party ideology.
Have the political parties taking advantage of that?
Of course, because during that particular period in time when we were IPAC chairman, every secretary, the chairmen were trained, the secretaries were trained, the publicity secretary were trained, the labor, the legal people were trained. Everybody was trained down the line, including the state chairman. And we succeeded in those particular training. But you see, the thing has gone beyond that. The heavy monetization of our politics has caused a lot of problem into the system. And that is why, with all due respect, what we are having now that is organic for Peter Obi is resonating. Because if we succeed in this particular, you can see it is the people that own the process. They are the one moving the process. Even the one you saw in Jos, no kobo was given by any campaign organization or anything. And that, of course, if we can transform it, it will help us.
Let's wrap up. I agree with you entirely on what you said, this last bit about the Peter Obi movement. I would have probably not agreed until I had an experience last Saturday.
Yes.
What was the experience? A lady I know very well, we attend the same church, I was going for my morning exercise, 6:30, and I saw her driving into the the neighborhood. And I asked her, this early in the morning, where are you coming from? So she says she went to pick up pastries. I said, pastries, who's having a party? She said, no, Obi, the Peter Obi march on Saturday. I said, really? I didn't even know there was a march. I mean, that was how naive. She said, so I was like, oh, Boma, you use your money to go get pastries, So I agree to a large extent. There will be whatever is it's self-funding, and that also ties back to what I said. That is the way political parties should be organized, should be funded. That way, no one individual will become a superstar. Nobody can talk to, nobody can control.
With the correlation to what you are saying, even in the United States, like I said, on variable fact. McCain collected $40 million.
How much did Obama raise?
Obama did not collect. You have a choice. You either collect from the government, which has a cap, or you don't collect. And that is where Obama was able to resonate because he has the movement for him, just like how Obi is having the movement for him. So it's easy for people to contribute to it.
Let's round up with this. We're talking about, just since we touched on it, so let's round up with it. A number of polls, 1 or 2 polls have come out to say Peter Obi is going to win. Are you sure those polls are not fictitious polls?
No.
You have less than 1 minute.
No, they are not. Because they are going with the euphoria of the people owning the process. If you, as an example, you are just giving now, that somebody went into his home and used his own money to make pastry, some have made pump.
Those polls have been faulted on several premises. And I agree with the critique of those, the methodology of those polls. Take, for instance, how do you do a poll of 1,000 people and come out to say, because you sampled 1,000 persons in a particular, environment, region, and then you go to town and say, but we can't.
Oh my God! I would have loved to give.
We can't go into it. Sir. I am so glad you came because I know you guys are very busy. I had to drag you out of this peace signing accord. Thank you so much for coming. I can promise you is that you are going to be coming, regularly in this.
No problem.
Because I need to tap into your wealth of experience.
Anything that had to do with building a new Nigeria of our future, I am part of it. Call me anything.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nice having you.
Thank you.
And that's the end of the interview segment. We'll take this short break, and when we come back, I'll give my closing statement. Please stay with us. Welcome back. And here are my closing statements. If we scan the global environment, we see a clear nexus between the roles of durable socio-cultural and political institutions that produce leaders and the attitude and contributions of these to their nations. In China, regardless of where or what you studied, eventually you return home and join the China Communist Party, where you are ingested into the arteries of governments at the local level, eventually rising based on demonstrable performance to higher echelons of leadership. Every leader of China, from its Cultural Revolution in 1949 to date, from Mao Zedong to the current Xi Jinping, all went through this process. In the US, whether you attended Harvard, Yale, or MIT, or even the military, you eventually get assimilated into either the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, and from this, begin your political journey. Nobody has become president, governor, senator, or congressman in the United States outside of these two enduring political institutions. In South Africa, it's the same. Nobody attains higher political leadership position without having been properly groomed in the values, ethos, and the tenets of the ANC. Whether you are an Oxford-trained Thabo Mbeki or a local boy like Jacob Zuma, the ANC is supreme. You learn to subordinate your ego and personal ambition to its dictates and authority. The best example, however, is the United Kingdom. Here, we see a deliberate system of leadership production that is far more systemic, enduring, and impactful than elsewhere in the entire world. For instance, just 4 universities, Oxford, Cambridge, Glasgow, and Edinburgh, produced 47 prime ministers, that is 87% of all the 56 prime ministers in the history of the United Kingdom. Interestingly, Oxford University alone, founded in 1096, has produced 29 prime ministers, including the current one, Liz Truss. Furthermore, of all the 56 prime ministers in the UK's history, all were elected from the British House of Commons. Therefore, the leadership making process in the United Kingdom is twofold: educational and political. You go to school to learn and acquire knowledge in relevant fields and disciplines, either economics, politics, or law, etc. Then you proceed to get elected into the House of Commons, that great democratic institution, from which you evolve from the back benches to the front row. Now, what are the lessons from the foregoing for Africa and Nigeria? Number one, leadership is a strategic capability and its making must be deliberate. Number two, the whole must be far bigger than its individual parts. No individual must be bigger than the country or political party. Number three, rowdiness and indiscipline are the bane of development and growth of any society. Number four, the absence of long-term strategic planning and fastidious execution is the exact recipe for backwardness and underdevelopment. Fifthly, the quality of political leadership is directly correlated to the attainment of national goals and aspirations. Finally, to sustain tangible social development, economic growth and progress, there must be a continuous supply of quality and consistent change of political leadership. Remember, change requires action, and positive change requires positive action. I believe in a new Nigeria, and it is possible. And those are my closing thoughts. Thank you. Now, that's the program today. Remember to follow me on my different social media handles. Subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can watch this particular video and others there at your convenience. Drop your comments also. I'd love to hear from you, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.